going on, everybody, and welcome back into another episode of Chop It Up. As always, I'm your host, Carter Stedman. Got a loaded show for you guys today. It's going to be college football from pretty much start to finish today. It was a wild weekend. Saturday was a crazy day. Lots of upsets, lots of top 25 matchups. We're going to talk about some teams that I think we should start buying stock in and some teams that maybe it's time to start selling some stock. There were some really good performances this weekend and some really bad performances. But before we get into any of that, as always, be sure to subscribe and leave a like on the channel. We're going to start producing a little bit more track and field content over the next week or so due to the fact that the World Championships are going on right now in Tokyo. If you guys follow my channel on Instagram and TikTok, which if you're not, you definitely should be, you can go see content from USA's, as I was there covering the USA Championships in Eugene. Now Worlds are going on, and it's kind of funky because the races are either super late in the evening or super early in the morning because of the fact that they're in Japan. So I've been waking up 5 a.m. watching these races, watching these events. It's been a lot of fun, but it's been a grind. And so hopefully about middle of the week, we'll be halfway through World Championships and looking to get a bonus episode to you guys there. So be sure to like and subscribe to check that out. Also moving forward, it sounds like my boy Hunter will be moving back in soon. So excited to get him back here in the apartment and get to work. I mean, the plan is for him to join the show full time as a co-host. And so that'll be a lot of fun, have a lot of fun content, and also hoping to increase in the production department. I think, Hunter and I have talked a lot about what we can do to make this show more enjoyable, more entertaining. And so we're gonna have a lot of fun for you guys coming up there as well. Final announcement before we get into the stuff that you guys are all waiting for. If you want to hear more from me, go check out Ace Sports Radio. That's Ace Sports Radio, ACE, down here in the Medford, Ashland area. If you're in this area, it's 107.9 FM and 1300 AM on your radio dial. That's Tuesdays and Thursdays from 1 to 3 p.m. I'm in studio with my co-host Kyle Clements. It also re-airs from 6 to 8 p.m. and 6 to 8 a.m. on the other weekdays as well. So moving up in the world, we're on radio stations, we're growing the pod. It's going to be a lot of fun. But without further ado, let's get down to business and talk some college football. Let's open it up with a morning game, Clemson at Georgia Tech. I had Clemson in this one. I knew this would be an extremely close game. I just thought Clemson would be more talented, and I thought they would play well enough to win this game on the road. And I was wrong. And I want to give credit to Haynes King. Coming into this game, the rumor was that he was a little banged up. He wasn't at 100%. And when you don't have a quarterback that's at 100%, especially for Georgia Tech, Haynes King was responsible for over, I want to say 300 yards of total offense for them. I think they had about 358 yards total. He was responsible for over 300. And so when you have a guy that is that responsible for your offensive playmaking, it's going to be hard to win games if he's not at his full capacity. And so because of that, and because they were facing such a dynamic, tough Clemson defense, I truly thought that this would be a tough game for Georgia Tech to win. And credit to them, they stayed in it, they stayed tough. There were some times where their backs were against the wall, and they did enough to win this game. And honestly, they deserved to win this game because I was so disappointed in what I saw from this Clemson team. Heading into this year, there's so much hype around Dabo Swinney's squad because they were experienced, they were bringing back their coordinators, they were bringing back their quarterback in Cade Klubnik, a guy that came in as a 5-star recruit. After Trevor Lawrence, this guy was supposed to be next up. He was supposed to be the next big thing. And we just haven't seen that. And I think this goes to show that just because a quarterback has raw talent and he's been around a certain program for a long time, doesn't always mean that he's going to blossom into the star that we want him to. Now, this is kind of dual-sided. Part of it is we need to have more realistic expectations as fans and as the media. But the other side of that is that sometimes guys just aren't going to live up to expectations. And I think, unfortunately, Cade Klubnik is one of those guys. I don't know if this is a Garrett Riley problem. I don't know if it's a Dabo Swinney problem. It's obviously partially a Cade Klubnik problem, but this Clemson offense just has not been able to get rolling this season. And now they're sitting at 1-2 in a position where a lot of people thought they should be 3-0. They should be undefeated ACC champions. And now they essentially have to win out to get a playoff spot. And that's not a place you want to be after week 3. I mean, this is just, it's a bad spot for Dabo. No one thought he would be here after a relatively disappointing year last year. I know they got into the playoff, but things were pretty ugly there for a while. So for them to claw their way back and then have this momentum coming into this season, and now you're in a dumpster fire. You're way behind the 8 ball. It's going to be tough for Dabo to get his guys rallied, get that locker room back, and really to trust him. I think Clemson could be in for a long season. And if Cade Klubnik doesn't drastically turn things around, it's not only going to be a rough year for him at Clemson, but you're going to see his draft stock, I think, start to drastically plummet here in the following months. But that's enough about Clemson. They were poor. They played super poor. I was not worried about them after the LSU game. After this loss, I'm extremely worried because there were some plays in there where I was just like, what are we doing? I mean, it looks so mediocre from a team that has so much talent. So I don't know what the answer is for Clemson. I really don't. I don't know if it's going out and hitting the portal. I don't know if it's getting rid of Garrett Riley, bringing in a new offensive mind, maybe a fresh face at quarterback next season. Obviously, they're not going to bench Klubnik. But this was not impressive, and it's going to be a downhill slide for this Clemson program if something doesn't change here very, very soon. Credit to Georgia Tech, though. That's a great win for them. That puts them right in the driver's seat in a very competitive ACC conference. Last year, I talked a lot of trash about this Atlantic Coast Conference, and rightfully so. They were not very good. They weren't very deep. They thought that they were at the same level of the Big Ten and the SEC, and they just so clearly weren't. They're probably still not, but now there's a little bit more depth. Now you have Miami. Florida State looks really good. Clemson, I'm sure, will find a way to still be in the mix. And now you have Georgia Tech, a team that is more confident than ever. They end their winning streak against Clemson. They get this huge win at home. It's chaotic there in Atlanta. They get this big win. And as Haynes King continues to get healthier, he's only going to get better. Sometimes with these mobile quarterbacks, they're more reliant with their legs than their arm, or vice versa. Haynes King can do a little bit of both. He can move the ball down the field vertically with his arm, but he can also make plays. He can run around you, and he can run through you. And so as Georgia Tech continues to get down the home stretch of their conference play, look for them to be in the hunt, maybe not for a college football playoff spot, but they're going to be scratching and clawing their way into an ACC championship game. So don't be surprised if you see the Yellow Jackets buzzing around the top of the ACC rankings. Pun intended on that one. Let's move on to the games that were in the afternoon slate. Before we get into this, I want to preface these next couple of games by saying in college football, more teams lose games than they win. And I know that doesn't really make sense when you say that, but I guess the better way to put that would be more teams find ways to lose games than they find ways to win games. When you look at a lot of college football teams, whether it's a top 5 team, whether it's a top 25 team, whether it's an unranked team, there's certain squads that are used to this high level of pressure, that are used to playing at an elite level when the game's close, late in the game. And usually it's the more experienced or more talented, more poised programs that are able to make plays to put them in successful positions. And on the other hand, you see a lot of programs that get in these positions and absolutely crumble. And this weekend was the perfect representation of that. Let's start it off with LSU, Florida. First of all, big win by Florida. Big win by LSU. I think Florida is a quality team. I don't think that they're a top 25 team. They were abysmal in Baton Rouge last night, but I do think for any team that's able to get past Florida, that's a momentum builder because they are talented. I think Billy Napier is a decent coach, even though I think it's almost a guarantee he's going to get fired after this year. They just haven't been able to get the job done in Gainesville. They can't win big games, at least not consistently. But DJ Lagway, he's a stud. We're going to get into him in a little bit. They have talent in the trenches on the offensive line and the defensive line. They're skill positions. They have guys that can go out and make plays at every spot, whether it's wide receiver, whether it's running back, whether it's on the defensive side of the ball, on the outside. So Florida's not a slouch of a team, but I was not super impressed with LSU. They did get the win. They were at home. But Garrett Nussmeier, again, another quarterback that we thought was just going to come in and ball out this season. He hasn't really done that. He only has a few touchdowns on the year. LSU's really struggled to put points on the board against Power 4 opponents. In the debut against Clemson, they didn't look great offensively. Again, here at home against a Florida squad coming off a loss against USF, they also didn't look great. And so there's, like I said, it's twofold. As the media and as fans, we need to lower our expectations of these quarterbacks, because not every person, not every fifth year senior, not every grad transfer, whatever you want to say, is going to come in and be the next Trevor Lawrence or the next Joe Burrow. That's just not going to happen. There's a reason those guys are one of one, and you just don't get that year in and year out. That's not to say these dudes aren't talented. That's not to say they're not going to be top 10 or first round picks in the NFL draft, but we just need to relax with the comparisons and the expectations that every year we're going to get some guy that's the new best college quarterback of all time. On the other side of this, I think that there is a development problem in college football. There's not a talent problem, but there's a development problem. And what I mean by this is that, for one, at the high school level, now kids are more concerned with going to camps, getting their rankings up, going from a 3-star to a 4-star so that they can get recruited by bigger programs, rather than just truly working on the fundamentals, working on their craft, and being able to play at that next level and be able to grow at that next level. They're more worried about their brand. And it doesn't get any better once they get to college, because now the focus turns from getting your ranking higher to getting paid. And not to say that these guys shouldn't get paid, because they obviously should, but this is just, it's not a situation that's going to equal success for as many people as it probably should. Because when you're bouncing around from school to school so that you can get a bigger paycheck, ultimately it's going to come at a price. And what we've seen is the price is playing good quality football, especially at the quarterback position. So I don't mean to hate on college quarterbacks, especially now, because there's some great talent out there. But I'm just saying, when quarterbacks fall short of expectations, there's a reason for that. And everyone can be held accountable in that situation. So that's my rant about that. That's my rant about Garrett Nussmeier. Not to say he was bad, because he did enough to win, but I know that there's more in the tank for him, and I know he's probably aware of that as well. And also, Brian Kelly's aware. I don't know if you guys saw this, but in the press conference after the game yesterday, the very first question he's asked, "Hey, coach, how do you feel about the offense?" And he tees off on this reporter, asking that to stupid questions, saying that they won the game, it shouldn't matter, it was a big win, which, to Brian Kelly's defense, anytime you win an SEC game, you should take credit for that. You should feel good about that. But also, they beat Florida, a team that's not going to be a top 25 opponent, and it's only going to get harder for this LSU program. So LSU has to be able to establish the run game. They haven't been running the ball great. They can't get Caleb Durham going. I don't know what the answer is. I would think up front LSU should have enough to get things figured out. But the problem is with that, if you can't establish the run, then Nussmeier is not going to be able to air it out and move the ball downfield as well as we know he can, because the secondary is going to be prepared for the pass. And so going forward for this LSU Tigers team, they're going to have to run the ball, because right now they're sitting in the top 5 in the AP poll. But when you go to Alabama or you play Oklahoma or Texas or whoever it is, you have to be able to be multidimensional on offense. And so far, we haven't seen LSU do that. Nevertheless, good win for the Tigers. I think they are a playoff team. I'm excited to see how they develop as this year goes on. But they got some things to fix, and so that'll be something to keep an eye on, most definitely. Let's get into Florida. I just want to touch on them for a second. And really not even Florida, just one person in specific. DJ Lagway. Absolutely abysmal performance. This is a perfect representation of what I was talking about with expectations and development, because people were saying he was a Heisman favorite this season. He was going to take Florida to the promised land. All questions were answered in Gainesville. Well, now this Florida team sits at 1-2. They look like the life is already out of the locker room. It does not look good. But DJ Lagway throws 5 interceptions. Count them up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Not good. And, when I saw this on the box score, because I didn't watch the complete game, turned it off to go watch A&M and Notre Dame. But you would think, maybe there's a tip the ball, maybe it's the wide receiver's fault, some sort of miscommunication. Based on what I saw, all 5 interceptions were on DJ Lagway. And I get it. You're at LSU, it's a night game, Death Valley, all of that good stuff. But that's not an excuse to go out and have 5 interceptions. If you're any sort of a Heisman favorite, That's not what you want to see out of what's supposed to be your program-changing quarterback. I think Lagway is super talented. We've seen it. He can do it with the legs. He can do it with the arms. He can do all this awesome stuff. But he's going to have to clean it up. And he's been sloppy. Now, part of that comes with experience. But also, he just has to be able to learn quicker. He's in the SEC. You can't mess around like you would be if you're in the Pac-12 or the Big 12 or a Group of 5 school. You have to learn on the fly, and you have to learn fast. And so far, it seems like that's been a struggle for DJ Lagway. I hope to see him improve because I think he has everything it takes to be the best quarterback in college football. But man, that was a rough night for Florida down in Baton Rouge. Not fun to be a Gators fan. Let's stay in the SEC, go to what I would call the co-game of the year. Tennessee facing off against Georgia. It was Tennessee's game to lose. You could feel the tension in Neyland Stadium, and Tennessee had it. I picked them to win this game. I thought they would do enough to win. It felt like they did enough, but there's a couple moments throughout this game where you look at and just go, it seemed like they were scared of the moment. And there's a couple moments that we're going to go through here in a second, but also just wasn't a Tennessee problem. Credit to this Georgia squad. This was the most Kirby Smart-esque win I've ever seen out of this Georgia team. They go down early. Tennessee hangs 21 off them. The roof is about to pop off of Neyland Stadium. Yes, I know they don't actually have a roof, but you know what I mean. And all of a sudden, you just see Georgia go back to what they do best. Establish the run, ground and pound. Their offensive line is just overpowering this Tennessee defense all of a sudden. For that second and third quarter, Georgia looked like the best team in college football. Gunnar Stockton, a guy who struggled to make plays with his arm, he's driving the ball downfield. He's making guys miss with his legs. He's finding his open target, so they're making plays. You could feel the air on the broadcast. You could feel the air in Neyland Stadium get sucked out. People thought the game was over. People thought that Tennessee was done. And then all of a sudden, here come the Vols right back in it. This fourth quarter was an absolute shootout. One of the best college football games I think I've ever watched. Tennessee scores, they go up, and all of a sudden it seems like Tennessee's in the driver's seat. And this is where we see them start to get scared of the moment. Let me paint the picture for you guys. There's 8:21 left in the fourth quarter. So you got about 8 minutes left. Tennessee gets a strip sack on Gunnar Stockton after going up and scoring to take the lead. So they're up, they have the ball, 1st and 15 at the Georgia 39-yard line. So they're essentially already in field goal range. Now, with around 8 minutes left and you're up 5, you're thinking, okay, let's take 4 to 5 minutes off this clock, at the very least kick a field goal. But if we score a touchdown, the game's probably over. You go up 12 or 13 if you decide to go for 2 for some reason. And that's probably the game. If you can take 4 minutes off the clock and score a touchdown with an offense that had been humming for a majority of the night, you're leaving Georgia to score 2 touchdowns in 4 minutes. That's just not going to happen, most likely. But what does Josh Heupel and this Tennessee offense decide to do? After the false start, they run 3 consecutive run plays in between the tackles. Picked up maybe a total of 7 yards. You force your kicker, Max Gilbert. You got to feel for the guy. He comes out, does his job, makes a 45-yard field goal. Tennessee up 8. But then again, you just can't. It seemed like they were too passive. In that moment, you have to go take it. You have to be aggressive. Move the ball downfield. At least make an attempt to go put the ball in the end zone. Don't just stall out at the 30 because you got lucky or made a play on defense. No, go win the game. Don't just play to not lose. You have to play to win. And in that case, Tennessee was playing not to lose. They settle for the field goal, and then what do we see the very next possession? 4th down, Georgia at the Tennessee 28-yard line. Gunnar Stockton delivers the best throw I've seen him make since he started at Georgia. Fade ball, opposite field, right on the money, back shoulder. This was beautiful. And for Tennessee, once again, you let up a big play on 4th down when you have a chance to win the game. Georgia gets the 2-point conversion. And then this field goal attempt by Tennessee was borderline pathetic, I want to say. Max Gilbert, once again, this is where it was almost representative of the entire Tennessee team, of the entire stadium, the whole game. You could feel the tension. The closer it got to the end of the game, you just knew that Tennessee was like, well, here we go again. We're going to lose. And this kid, Max Gilbert, and I don't want to discredit him. He's a Division I athlete. Like, total respect to that. He looked like he saw a ghost. He looked like Freddy Krueger was standing on the goalpost, staring at him as he attempts a 45-yard field goal. And this thing couldn't have been more off. As soon as he kicked it, you knew it was gone. Chris Fowler even called it out probably a half second after the ball left Gilbert's foot. Faded wide right. And Georgia ultimately ends up getting this win in overtime because Tennessee was so passive. Once again, once you get into overtime, you almost have to score touchdowns at this point because Georgia's offense is so dynamic. They're running the ball at such an elite level. Tennessee starts out with it, and then you're just running conservative plays. You're trying to run between the tackles. You're not playing with any sort of tempo, which is what Tennessee had to do in order to move the ball downfield. And they just got conservative. They got scared. They got passive. And they just kind of said, here you go, Georgia. We didn't really want this one. We got too scared of the moment. You can have it. And so, great win by Georgia. It was great resilience. I think Tennessee's a pretty quality team. I think going forward, you can see them make some noise. But the problem is, when they get into that situation, they have to be able to trust their philosophy. They have to be able to trust each other. And they have to be able to trust themselves. Because whether it's Joey Aguilar trying to find receivers downfield, whether it's the receivers trying to make plays, whether it's Josh Heupel's play calling, or whether it's the kicker, you can't be scared to take the game away from someone else. You have to be aggressive on offense. Go score touchdowns. Go try to put the ball in the end zone. Don't settle for field goals. Don't run the ball on 3rd and 9 in overtime when you know if you don't score a touchdown, your chances of winning the game are in serious threat. So I didn't love that, but I want to give a lot of credit to Georgia. Big win. They're going to have to get better as well, but listen, that's what you're going to get in week 3 matchups in college football. You're not going to get national championship level play all the time. Teams are going to look sloppy. Sometimes they're going to score a lot of points. Sometimes they're not. And we get really good games because of that. And that's exactly what we got here with the Bulldogs and the Volunteers. So let's move into the 4th and final game of this show. And the reason I called Tennessee-Georgia co-game of the year is because this one last night was an absolute masterclass. Notre Dame and Texas A&M. I said it in my predictions, which, by the way, 1-4 after a big weekend last weekend. Not good. We fall back to 6-10 overall in our picks this season, or maybe 6-9. Yeah, 6-9. So we're gonna have to bounce back from that one next week, but I'm confident in my abilities to hopefully pick games. But anyways, Texas A&M proved me wrong. I said I didn't think that they could go in and win a big game on the road. We haven't really seen them do it. In SEC play, in preseason play, Texas A&M is one of those programs that comes into the season overhyped, lots of talent on their team, new quarterback, whatever it is, and they kind of just lay an egg, and then they just 8-4, 9-3, somewhere in that range, and then they just kind of ride off into the sunset, and I've always been satisfied with that, I guess you could say. Well, this team showed me that they might be a little different. They weren't perfect by any means. I actually thought Notre Dame outplayed them. But for A&M to go into that environment, to be in that setting and get a win like that, huge, huge. There was multiple times throughout this game where it felt like Notre Dame was just going to keep running the ball. They were going to keep making plays, whatever it was. Marcel Reed was running for his life for a majority of this game. And he wasn't perfect by any means. You look at the stat sheet, you see 17 of 37, 360 yards, 2 touchdowns. Not efficient anytime you have 20 incompletions, but that's enough to get the job done. And I think this is just who Texas A&M is. They're not going to play perfect ball. It's going to look a little sloppy. It's going to be a little wild. But there's so much talent on this team that they're going to be able to go toe-to-toe with anyone, at least offensively. I want to give a shout-out to Mario Craver, wide receiver for Texas A&M. 7 receptions for 207 yards. Absolute insane numbers there. Not to mention they have Concepcion, the transfer from NC State. He comes over. That 1-2 punch, along with the dynamic ability that Reed offers, that's going to be scary for any defense. Now, they're going to have to clean it up. You're going to have to limit the interceptions. Marcel Reed threw a ball yesterday that pretty atrocious. Threw it right to the DB. Easy interception for him. But they just have to clean things up, because if they don't, then you're going to see the Texas A&M of the old, where they play Texas and they can't make plays in the second half, or they run into Alabama and they just turn the ball over. They got to clean things up, but the playmaking is there. And so if I'm an Aggies fan, that's something that's really exciting, because we went in to an environment that's tough to play in. Backs were against the wall on multiple occasions, and we found a way to win. Now, along with Texas A&M finding a way to win, there's Notre Dame finding a way to lose. Most notably, the botched PAT after going up a touchdown in the fourth quarter. We always hear coaches talk about special teams. Oh, we got to execute on special teams. We got to be good on special teams. And most of the time as a fan, you're kind of just like, yeah, like whatever. Yeah, special teams. We obviously make field goals, try and get touchbacks, don't allow big returns. We get it, right? Well, this is why teams and this is why coaches have their teams practice what they preach, because all the momentum goes to Notre Dame. Jeremiah Love, super explosive play, scores the game, or scores a touchdown rather. Seems like Notre Dame's going to go on, win this game. All they need is a stop on defense, which, although they hadn't stopped Texas A&M throughout the second half, there had been some plays that made you think, if Texas A&M gets behind the sticks, they're going to be in a really bad spot here. Nevertheless, all the momentum is on the Irish's side. And what do? They botch the extra point. The holder, I don't have his name, but muffs the snap, takes off, tries to throw it, incomplete. So that only gives Notre Dame a 6-point lead. Obviously, once again, Texas A&M, 4th and goal, Marcel Reed running for his life. Game-winning touchdown on a fantastic catch, by the way. Shout out to Texas A&M tight end. Fantastic snag, 4th and goal. All the marbles on the line. And so for Texas A&M to go out and do that at that stage, it was impressive. And I didn't think that they were going to do it. I didn't think that they're capable of it. But credit to Mike Elko and his coaching staff for getting his team to be composed down the stretch, because that's been another problem with A&M. They know that they have the talent to hang with teams, but then composure-wise, they just can't really match it. When the going gets tough, we've seen them fall apart. So this might be a different Texas A&M team. And I'm not saying Texas A&M to the playoff, Texas A&M to the SEC championship. I think we should be cautiously optimistic about this team, because the talent's there, but I need to see them execute at a little bit of a higher level just throughout the majority of a game in order for them to potentially get into the college football playoff. But also, when you look at their schedule, they don't really have the gauntlet that some teams do. They don't have the gauntlet like Oklahoma does. They don't have the schedule like Florida does. You get Auburn, Mississippi State, and Florida all at home. You go on the road, Arkansas, on the road at LSU, on the road to Missouri. You get South Carolina, who looks like they just might have lost Lenore Sellers for a little bit. You get them at home. Then you get a cupcake at Samford. And then you wrap the season up on the road in Austin against your rival in Texas. That's not an easy schedule by any means, but it's definitely doable. And if you can go on the road and win a game at Notre Dame, you should also be able to win a lot of those games. And so for Texas A&M, oddly enough, they come out of the woodworks. Everything's right in front of them as well. Just like Georgia Tech coming out of nowhere. Just like some of these other teams that have emerged by just winning preseason big games. And so credit to Texas A&M for finally stepping up, playing to the level of their competition, and having the composure to go into a big game and win on the road. I think this is a huge step for this program, and I'm really excited to see where it goes from here, because in my opinion, college football is better when Texas A&M is good, and we haven't really seen that since the glory days of Johnny Manziel and Mike Evans. Now let's talk about Notre Dame for a second, because this is really interesting. Obviously, they're a competitive team. You play 2 ranked opponents. You lose by 1 possession in both of those games. CJ Carr, redshirt freshman, he's looked awesome. I'm a big fan of his. I like what he can do with his legs. I like how he throws the ball. I like how he gets it to his target. He has a really nice zip on his pass, which is something that probably goes under the radar for most young quarterbacks. He's going to be a stud. I'm not worried about him at all. But for Marcus Freeman to be 0-2 early in the season, you're losing to top 5 team in Miami and another top 15, maybe a top 10 team in Texas A&M. You hate to say that your season's over because you still have to play 10 more games, but those big wins that you really need to define yourself as a college football playoff caliber team, those wins are behind you now. Those opportunities are kind of gone. They still have Boise State, they still have USC, then you have some kind of weird sneaker games like Boston College and Pitt, maybe a couple other games that could end up being bigger than what we expect down the road. But this is the problem with Notre Dame not being in a conference is if they were to lose to Miami and they were to lose to Texas A&M and say Notre Dame was in the ACC like some of their other sports programs are, you're 0-1 in conference play, you're 0-2 overall, but if you go 8-1 in your conference and you finish the season at 10-2, you probably make your conference championship, you have a chance to win that, and then just like that, you're a 2-loss conference champion in the college football playoff. But by being an independent, you don't get the same opportunities that Clemson might get. You don't get the same opportunities that Alabama might get. So for Notre Dame to come out in year after year after year and say, we like the advantage of not being in a conference, we're okay not being in a Power 4 conference, now you start to raise the eyebrow a little bit, because if you lose these preseason games, you don't have a conference schedule to make that up. You just have a mediocre middle of the season against subpar competition, and all you can do from there is really hurt yourself, because if the Boise State game's close, if the Boston College game's close, if USC's close, like you can't, that's not a win, because that's not helping you in your conference play. That's not some sort of great ranked win. People look at that and just say, well, it's Notre Dame. They're 6-2 and now they're barely beating kind of middle of the road teams. Whereas if you were 8-2 and you were on a heater and you were second in your conference, people might look at you a little bit differently. And so it's unfortunate for Notre Dame. It's unfortunate for Marcus Freeman. He just led this program to a national championship appearance a year ago, and now is back, not his back being against the wall in a coaching standpoint, but in terms of this season, I would like to say everything's in front of him still, but I'm not sure that it is, because the fact that the big wins just aren't there for them. They had 2 really, really good opportunities, and they were tough games. I'm not saying, that they should have won or that they gave those games away, but they had opportunities to win. The Miami game was tough, but I think Notre Dame should have won this game. And it just kind of goes to show you, these are kids. Nothing's ever going to be perfect. No one's ever going to play perfect. No matter how many 5th or 6th year seniors a team has, no matter how many 5-star recruits a team has, you're going to get imperfect play. You're going to get imperfect teams. And overall, that's why we love college football. That's why I have this show, because we're able to talk about this. We're able to look at these teams, digest their schedules and their play, and we also get to watch them develop from the beginning of the season to the end of the season. And that's one of the great things about this sport. That is going to wrap it up for today's show of Chop It Up. If you haven't already, please hit the like, subscribe button. Tell your friends about the show. Tell your coworkers about the show, your boss, your friend's dog, everyone. Tell them about Chop It Up. And also, be sure to go check me out at Ace Sports Radio. The show name is called Tee It Up Southern Oregon. Be sure to go check that out with me and my co-host Kyle Clements. We have a good time, 1 to 3 p.m., Tuesdays and Thursdays. Come over and check us out for a couple hours in the middle of your workday, and we're going to have a blast. But that's going to wrap it up. Stay tuned later in the week for a show regarding the track and field world championships in Tokyo, and we will see you guys later.